Now, you don't have to make any notes at all, but I recommend that you make more notes than you would normally make. We will be covering a lot of stuff that none of you may have had an opportunity to reflect on. So in this kind of atmosphere of exploration and experimentation, lots of issues will come up, and it's very important, I think, to make notes of these things. It also keeps your mind clear going forward, because you don't have any nagging concerns that there was something really important that was being said half an hour ago, but I can't do anything about it now. I have to be in the moment. So you might want to think about this workshop as a workshop that you might teach yourself, or there may be some aspects of this workshop that you would like to share with your teams and with your direct reports. And that's another good reason for taking lots of notes.
Slides that require the workbook will be indicated with the corresponding workbook page number.
We're going to explore aspects of verbal communication that it's almost certain you haven't had an opportunity to explore before. Those of you who've heard a little bit about the program may have heard that it is somewhat different, not necessarily better, but different than other programs. So here's where it begins. I think that developing your ability to express yourself verbally is the single most important core skill that a human being can pursue. It's what we are desperate to do from the time we have consciousness and awareness, when we're born and when we're babies, and we will be wanting to express ourselves until the day we die, with varying degrees of importance. And in amongst all that, of course, is this thing called your career. And I would say most of you, maybe even every single one of you, is at a point in your career where there isn't too much more information, knowledge, qualification, and so on that you can acquire. Improving your speaking skills is arguably the greatest single way of changing the trajectory of your career from where it is right now to where you would like it to be. Because obviously, leadership is more than skill, dedication, passion, knowledge, empathy, all of these good things. It's about our ability to express our skills and our professionalism and our dedication. And that's the difference between moving into a leadership role or moving into an even higher leadership role and basically staying on the trajectory that you've been on. We're going to do this in three stages. The first stage, I'm sorry, is a little bit about theory, but I know that you're independent thinkers and that if you know how something works, you can figure out how to make it work yourself. You know? People don't like, it's like someone teaching you to drive and they keep putting their hands on the wheel. Get off, I'll drive. Right? So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to micromanage you in that sense. I will encourage you to try things and to experiment with things. But I know that you don't like to be told what to do. So first part, theoretical. Second part, how to think on your feet. How to organize information to be heard versus what you're already very, very good at, which is information to be read. And the third and the longest part of what we're doing has to do with your personal performance. What happens to you physically, vocally, emotionally, and so on. And how do you psychologically successfully communicate with other people? What are all the tools that we need to know? In order for you to be the very best you can be, it's very important for you to become your own coach. You don't want to hire somebody like me on an ongoing basis. It would be far too expensive. So I want to help you to become your own coach. Maybe even mentor and train or coach other people. So you need to be videotaped. I'll show you how to analyze your voice and your communication style in a very simple way, and we will build on your strengths. Now, I am aware that most of you, like most of my clients, are here because you have some kind of apprehension about speaking. Some people come to this workshop because they are terrific speakers and they want to be even more terrific speakers. But most people come because it's not very comfortable. I'm not looking forward to it. Not a lot of my clients saying, oh boy, I get to give a presentation tomorrow. Oh boy. So we will deal with that directly. That's what you're here for. And my goal is that each of you will have achieved a substantial and permanent improvement in your self-confidence and in your speaking skills. If you don't feel you have achieved that, there's no other way to say it. Why not tell you at the beginning, that's what happens in this workshop? So I have to tell you. And then people go, well, maybe for everybody else. But the truth is, not because I'm particularly clever, it's because we're going to address some of the myths about public speaking and some of the unconscious attitudes or big assumptions that most of the population have about giving a presentation. And you're all highly intelligent, educated people, and you'll get that. If you haven't already, you'll just get that right away.
So to recap, the objectives of this workshop are twofold. First, to improve your speaking skills and your self-confidence. And second, to begin a lifelong development of your communication skills throughout your career for both your professional and personal lives.
Those of you who are accountants, you are trained to be objective and impersonal. Yeah? I mean, the numbers have to be the numbers. This is a science here. 2 and 2 is 4. We were thinking we might make 2 and 2 5 for a couple of... No, that's not good. Forget it. So it's about numbers. It's about being objective. If I'm an accountant, I want to impress you. I say, my numbers are immaculate. Here they are. They all add up. They always have added. My calculations, my projections, all of this stuff, right? Why won't you hire me? Well, we don't like you as much as the other guy. What? Well, your qualifications are quite similar, but we like the other guy. Doesn't seem fair, does it? Doesn't seem fair. In other words, you have to embrace the fact that as you move into a leadership role, suddenly who you are and what you care about and what your personality is becomes more and more and more important. It may not have been important when you were in the back room and you studied so hard for so many years, and then you worked for more years of rigorous kind of apprenticeship or whatever that was in solitude in a reading and writing environment. And then someone came to your cubicle and said, congratulations, we're moving you up in the organization. Now get out there and talk to people. Whoa, did I miss a meeting? Because in the rigorous professional and academic training in professional services, lawyers as well, means that you guys don't get out much until you're in your late 20s compared to other people. And therefore, the people skills may be lagging behind. There's no relationship between being a nice person and having people skills, by the way. Some of the nicest people in the world have no people skills. Yeah? I don't want to confuse these two things. You know? There are people who've got fabulous people skills, and they're not very nice people, right? And I'm sure you've met one or two of them, right?
How does speaking affect your career? Pause the video and take a moment to answer this question on page 11. Nowadays, people don't want to be taught tricks and techniques. They want to know how things work, how things happen, and what the underlying principles are, so that they can develop their own techniques. To try to give some kind of idealized presentation based on someone else's preferences is simply going down the wrong road. Understanding and observing people. Very few speakers pay attention to the audience when they are speaking, and there's a tendency to give the presentation and then see how it went. Understanding and observing people takes a lot of courage, and communicating in this way is very terrifying. But ideally, you should know how your presentation is going, from moment to moment. Throughout this workshop, we will talk about how to format your presentation style and customize your content to suit the listener. But we will also talk about how to actually adapt the presentation in the moment as you are speaking. The biggest challenge great speakers overcome is reading people, and the key to reading people is understanding others. Ultimately, the skill will increase your effectiveness in meetings and improve your ability to control a room. It's also a great solution for speaking anxiety. It all has to do with your level of attention. Now you may be thinking, what if I'm an introvert? Well, most people taking this course in the Myers-Briggs world are considered to be introverts. This doesn't mean that they are shy. It means that they prefer to reflect on things rather than talk about them. So the introvert says, let me think about that. And the extrovert says, wow, let me talk this through.
Tend to fall into that category. Extroverts prefer to talk about things in order to find out exactly what they think, which can drive introverts crazy, because an extrovert will say something that is just doesn't make any sense. And the introvert's impulse is to say, that doesn't make any sense. And the extrovert doesn't care, because he or she's then going to say something else, and gradually, by the time they finish talking, they will actually have come up with a solution, which the introvert could have done in silence without disturbing anybody else. Thank you very much. Introverts tend not to do so well in meetings, especially if they're asked questions unexpectedly. Not good. Extroverts tend to be more comfortable in meetings. They're not necessarily performing any better, although in the moment they are more able to provide information. So that's the introversion, extroversion.
The good news is that after 20 years of this workshop, we have found that introverts make really, really good speakers. And that's because there's not a lot of ego involved. Most of the people taking this course simply want to bring up their speaking skills to the same level as their writing and analytic skills. Although you may have spent years honing your technical skills and using reading and writing as your primary modes of communication, this sort of training does not translate into speaking skills. I hope to assure you that you are as good as the amount of speaking that you've done. And in order to be a better speaker, you have to find more opportunities to speak. Now is a good time to take a quick Myers-Briggs test to discover your personality type, if you haven't already.
For those of you who are not familiar, very quickly, Myers-Briggs is a personality trait analyzing program, whereby going through an exhaustive couple of hundred questions, they help you to identify yourself in 4 different kinds of areas. And the areas are whether you are an introvert or an extrovert. Now, this is Myers-Briggs term. So an introvert is not necessarily a shy person, and an extrovert is not necessarily a show-off. It's just that introverts in this context are energized by reflecting on things. They process things silently, and they are very reflective. The other categories are whether you are intuitive, whether you are a big picture, play your hunch, get a sense of things kind of thing, or whether you're very logical and you just deal with the senses, you know. So someone who is an S, for example, ice cream is an interesting mixture of frozen cream and sugar and whatever. And the intuitive person, it's walking on a beach with your little brother or something. And then there's thinking versus feeling. Everybody is a mixture, by the way. This is not about your one or your other. So everyone's pretty close. The third category is thinking versus feeling. And if you lean towards feeling, it means that you make decisions based on your emotional response, and then you confirm that with logic. The thinking person will tend to work strictly on logic and then check in with the emotional aspects of it. So they can both come up with exactly the same decision. It's just that they're instinct. And finally, there's judging versus perceiving. And judging people are people who like to have things settled, signed. Let's do this. Everyone agreed. Let's move forward. Like to have things organized.
We've provided a link to a free online test, and we've also provided you with some additional background information on the 16 personality types. This information goes a bit deeper than that provided on the free websites.